Hi, and welcome to another episode of Geekified. So, we have watched a film, and that film is I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Charlie Kaufman. There's a lot of buzz about it. It's been out for approximately, I think, about 5 days now. Most people have seen it, critics have seen it, fans have seen it, and what a polarizing opinion that I've seen about it. So, this could be very, very interesting to see where the three of us set our flag on whether we liked it, loved it, or sitting on the fence. So let's go straight over to Nathan. Nathan, what did you think of I'm Thinking of Ending Things?
I really liked it, but it was a mind bender. I think is the most polite way to put it. I'm a big fan of Kaufman anyway. I've seen a few of his stuff, and they're all a bit of that sort of ilk where you're not really sure what you're watching when you're watching it, and it sticks in your mind afterwards. And this is definitely one of them. Really good. I mean, it was fantastically acted and really good script. I thought. It felt to me like almost at some point like you're watching a play rather than a movie, which I thought was quite cool. And also the sort of stream of consciousness type thing with the narrator. That parts of it I thought was quite an interesting idea as well that you haven't really seen a lot in movies before. But yeah, no, really impressed with it.
Yeah. Not going to say how I feel yet. I'm just going to go with Mark for a quick summary, see what he thought. What did you think?
Oh yeah, I loved it. I discovered this movie via the composer, Jay Wadley, and the instant I heard the concept, I was like, I'm in. Like, I couldn't wait for it to show up on Netflix, and watched it day one, Like, I loved it.
Cool. I'm a bit controversial on this. I'm not saying that I loved it, and I'm not saying that I didn't like it. I was quite confused by it, and it took me quite some time to get my head around it. So I've probably the stupid one on this one today. But I think once it got to a certain point in the film, which this is probably will be a spoiler review because we are going to talk about stuff in the film getting all the way to the end and twists and turns. So it will be on the headline of this clip to say that it is spoiler. So don't watch it if you haven't watched it yet. But there got to certain points in the film where I felt like I was a bit bored because I didn't really know where it was going. And then there was almost a twisty horror sense it was coming up for it, which then it was gone, and then it kind of came back. And I just wasn't sure what I was getting because I really went into this film with a complete open mind on it. I wasn't knowing anything about it. I obviously know who Charlie Kaufman was. I didn't really know the plot, didn't really know the story, so it was a complete blank slate. But when I don't know, for majority of the film, I found it unsettling. And then there's quite a turn it takes at a moment in the house when you realise as a viewer that something's going wrong. And for me, that was the dog. So once the dog happened, with this constant shaking of the head, that really threw me. And I knew obviously I felt as if this going to go along a very unsettling horror, which it did. After it continued that's where it lost me. This is where I started to think, right, I have no idea what's going on. It was very interesting, but I was very up and down as a viewer, not knowing what the story was about. So I won't go into detail at the end, we'll discuss that. But I think by the time I got to the end, I had to read something else to understand exactly what everything was, which for me, as a viewer, is a fail. So I don't particularly like that. I think you need to explain something. I don't think, and that's what a lot of the critics are saying and a lot of fans are saying, like, you should go and see a film and get it. And I'm not stupid. I've seen lots of really mind-bending, twisty, crazy films. Tenet. I only seen that just a few weeks ago. And I've watched other really, really high-concept films, which I got. And this lost me by the time I got to the end. Eventually I got it, but it was by the time all the pieces were completely in place. So,
I mean, that's also like saying you just hate David Lynch because he doesn't let people know the true meaning of his films. I think any film in which you can still watch it to the very end and not 100% understand it, but then 3 or 4 people can walk away and have completely different theories on how it was. I like that. Some films, yes, you're right. They just don't know what they're doing with the story, and they get to the end and they're just kind of like, well, we didn't know what we were doing, so you can't possibly ever know. But I don't feel that there was no point in this movie where I thought the director has no clue where he's taking this. I always thought it felt very calculated and precise, even in its weirdness and craziness.
Yeah, I do. I completely agree with you on that. It was just I felt that, for me, the tone was a little bit off with Toni Collette and the manicness. And I understand, obviously, what Charlie Kaufman was trying to perceive. When you ever met, if you turned up at a new girlfriend's house, if you went to a new girlfriend's house and you met them for the first time, once you walk away from that evening, you're going to remember all of the weird little nuances that come from people. So that's kind of hyper aggressive when it's shown on film. But for me, I felt that the tone of the film, the way it was done in almost a horror, which just didn't fit. There were certain scenes in it where it was psychologically mind-bending, and knowing the end of the film was a reflection on what could have been, why would he make it psychologically mind-bending for that character?
But I think it's, I mean, my sort of take on the film was that it was all, I mean, it was all almost like memories of the girl. Because there's a bit at the end when she's standing with the janitor and she says, that time we first met 40 years ago. And you're like, well, wait a minute, that's a bit strange. So I think that she's basically remembering, she's like the guy's memory. That's what I thought. And so all the stuff that happened, it's none of it's linear, none of it's just sort of like memories. And then,
all right, so I've got a completely different take.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Well, I mean, shall we go through our takes? It does sound like we all have different takes on this one film.
Right, my take is that this is the janitor that you've seen reflecting back on what could have been of his life. So I think that he never dated that girl, I don't think. I think he met her in that pub in the quiz, never ever asked for her number. And I think he's sitting, going through the end of his life, thinking, well, sorry, it was something in my bloody eye. Sitting thinking, he's reflecting back, thinking all the options it could have been, all the things it could have been, and building almost a story for what his life could have been like with this girl. And if he actually met.
I think the bit, the bit of the dance at the end.
Yeah.
I think that tells you what's actually happened. So I think that so the janitor, I think he's done something to that girl. Because the bit at the end with the pig, and he's talking about how he's a pig with maggots and stuff like that. It suggests that he's and the bit when he goes a bit manic in the car, it suggests that he's gone a bit like he's regret and guilt of that incident that's happened. So obviously he's done something to that girl, and that's. But I still think it's about the thinking of ending it. I know she talks about it being a relationship, but I think it's her thinking about ending her life because of what's happened to her, or towards the end of her life.
I've seen the reflection of the dance is what he's seen as a janitor in the school of all the different performances of all the musicals, which is why he tries to impress her in the car by rhyming off kind of all the musicals that he knows. So he's seeing that in his head, thinking him and his future partner of this girl can be that. And the janitor who breaks it up is his mundane life, stepping in and separating what it could have been. Because the janitor splits this couple apart.
I understand that. I thought that my take was that she was actually the mother, that bit in the house. And then the father, although it was David Thewlis, who's a British actor playing it, was the guy. And then it sort of changed it. And it's all the memories of what's happened there. That's what I thought anyway. That's what I took from it. That helped me understand it.
Right, cool.
My take's completely different.
Okay. There's a space drama and Simon Pegg was there.
No, my thought is that I'm thinking of ending it was the janitor, the old janitor, is going to commit suicide finally. And that's what he does out in the snow. And that's why the car ends up buried. And there's subtle hints that support that maybe he's had this thought multiple times, like going to get the ice cream and fling it in the bin to realize the bin is filled to the top with that ice cream. It's a comfort food that people reach to in times of depression. And I think that the janitor is reliving his whole life in seconds, and that's why the dog is shaking so violently, because the dog is, dogs come into the house out of the cold and they shake it off sort of thing. And he's reliving all his life so quickly that we're seeing the dog just in a permanent state of flurry, And I believe that you know, it's not linear, because when you remember your life, you don't just go, oh, I remember when I was 3, then 5, then 7, and you know, you do go, oh, mind when we did this as kids, and then that sparks another memory and then another memory. And I think that's also why at different points, I cannot remember what the characters' names are. The Jessie
Plemons is the actor.
Yeah.
Jessie Buckley is the girlfriend. I can't remember the actual character's names.
Yeah, but her character, I think that's why she changed actress.
Oh, sorry. So that's another thing. The character name, her name changed quite a few times. That's why I can't remember it. It's Louisa, Lucy.
The actress changed.
Oh yeah, the actress changed as well. Yeah.
I think that's because he's mushing up a whole bunch of girlfriends and wives and potentials, and what we see is the one he wished he'd spent his life with, but maybe not necessarily the one he spent his life with.
Mm-hmm.
That was my take. And then the dance at the end was the story that led to him just being a sad, lonely old janitor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think, like, obviously the bit when she finally, I mean, this is what I found unsettling about the film, but I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, because it left me unsettled. Was the bit where she does get to the basement. Obviously that kind of really a lot of tension when he's obviously trying to protect the basement, mm-hmm. and then she's trying to get down there, and when she does eventually get down there, it's Toni Collette, the mum character, who says, just go down, stop letting him control you.
Yeah, that's because I thought she was the mother. She was that character. And then obviously when they're down there, the stuff in the washing is the janitor's overalls.
Yeah, that was the stuff that was in it, yeah. And I got that. Excuse me, COVID. I'm going to cut that out. I can't even joke about that on here, can I? No, I'll be shot for that, fuck's sake. Yeah, but when the bit of the basement, like I felt I didn't get the tension. I think that's one of the things that off-put me, because I'm very much about, if you're a horror movie, be a horror movie. If you're a psychological thriller, be a psychological thriller.
I never got a horror vibe from it.
Oh, I did. Like the bit with the family where it was kind of cutting, I felt as if it was edited and it was almost very, very eerie. And I don't like.
Yeah, it was unsettling rather than I found it unsettling, but I think.
Well, that would substantiate horror for me. Unsettling is unsettling. It's kind of Hitchcock. You know what I mean? That's kind of.
Yeah, I think the Kaufman. If you watch like Synecdoche, New York, it's got a very similar feel to that, and that's why I didn't see horror, I think, because I watched a few of his other films and I didn't find it to be like that.
Yeah. Wasn't I'm saying it wasn't the whole show, the whole film. It was literally mainly the bit when you realise things are going. Like a couple of times, the camera work was really unsettling when they first sat down on the couch. The camera moved first and then the characters moved, which I thought was a brilliant piece of kind of lean into what's going to happen next, which was quite cool. I liked that. It was a good play on it, but it still fitted the psychological thing for me at the time. And then gradually, I think it started to turn a bit horror when the camera was going around and it just disappeared or moved. That's when I think my head was starting to go a little bit with it.
Yeah, it did give that idea at the beginning that it could be a haunted house piece with, like, you know, the parents just standing there and waving, and they walk around to the barn and he's talking about having to slaughter the pigs and stuff, and and there is a dead pig lying in the barn, isn't it? When they first went,
dead sheep,
and he's just completely passive to it all. He's just like, oh, we live on a farm, that happens, you know. So it does give the vibe of potentially haunted house, or he's some sort of serial killer.
Yeah,
I agree with you there, Chris. It does give a slightly off-kilter vibe, but maybe at the same time that was just to amp up the weirdness.
Yeah. But that's the thing. The thing that gets me is, like, if this is about him reflecting back at moments of his life, why would he? For me, this is only my interpretation of what I've taken from it. Is why would he create an unsettling thing for the girl? So the girl, you as a viewer watching this, and it's almost unsettling the way that it's put together. Why would he create that as being unsettling for the viewer who's watching it? Surely the majority of stuff that he would put for the story of the complexity of what could have been would have been nice in those moments where she's meeting the mum.
I think the ice cream in the bin full of ice cream was to show comfort eating and depression. And, you know, so maybe the idea that he genuinely cannot see a nice version of his own life is to show manic depression, you know, and the fact that he doesn't even choose to remember the good parts of his own life. When the mum tries to talk about him being a successful artist and whatnot, it all just, he always denies it and things. But then there was another
quite interesting when they're standing in the living room looking at pictures. There's a picture of the young boy, and she said, "Who's that?" And he says, "That's me." And she said, "Well, that's me too."
I was going to say, do you think they were heavily hinting at that the boy maybe was, like, you know, transitioned from girl to boy or boy to girl? Because there's parts where she shows the sort of paintings she paints, then you go to the basement in his mum and dad's house, and it's the same paintings.
Yeah.
So is that just him remembering the memories completely wrong? Or was there a heavy hint that the girl that we saw throughout the whole beginning part was actually also him?
That's what I thought. I mean, that's what I sort of thought a bit of that was like, she's basically all the characters, because I definitely thought that she was the mother, because they had the, you know, the curly hair thing, and like the way they laughed. You know, they're talking about how they met first, and they're both laughing hysterically, and I sort of thought, you know, they're definitely the same person.
Yeah.
Or a version, different versions. Obviously, there was various different versions of the mother as well, at different ages and stuff. And the only one I didn't really get was and even at when they go to the ice cream shop, the person with she's got the same rash on her arms as he's got, but she looks a little bit like her, which was, I found quite interesting as well.
Yeah, I very much feel that the hint there, and again, these are all just theories, but potentially that the idea was he never lived a happy life, and we're seeing his life through the eyes of an old man looking back with depression filter on, and maybe he always wanted to transition into a woman and never did, so he chooses to remember his life as a female, not a male. But it's almost like his memories are corrupted and against that thought, in the craziness that ensues. But the one thing that you can take away from this movie is it's not clear.
Yeah, well, definitely.
Even the bit when they're when the dad's showing them the bedroom and he's talking about the bed, and he says they're effing, it's not for effing, and he says it about 4 or 5 times, which I found really bizarre, and why he felt the need to say that over and over again.
Yeah, these are the things that I like. And like I said, I gave my summary of what I think. So if it was his imagination of what his life would have been like with this girl he never actually spoke to try to make it happy, then why would he persist in having horror sections of it, and then persist in making her uncomfortable, and like meeting her dad and her dad saying something like that, because it is very uncomfortable.
Because I don't think it's as clear cut as that. I think it is far more. There's too many signposts for manic depression throughout the movie to ever accept that the narrator, whoever that is, because it's so unclear, is also an unreliable narrator, getting names wrong, getting faces wrong, getting ages wrong. Even the fact that when they're driving out to the house, he changes how far it is a couple of times. Like, he says it's a couple of hours, and he says it's an all-day trip.
But
You know,
even her personality changed in the car. Her personality went from being her to talking about, I think it was a famous actress from days gone by, I can't remember who it was now, and she becomes an actress and becomes very animated, but not in the sense that she's just jokingly playing as her. She actually becomes that woman.
But
mental.
The car has one very interesting point, which probably most people didn't notice. How loud the windscreen wipers are in that car on the inside.
Yeah.
And I think the reason for that is, if you notice, there's 2 very loud sound effects in this whole movie. The windscreen wipers and then it's just the sound of the snow, but the snow inside the house. I was sitting and saying, why is this snow mix so loud? This is a terrible mix, until I realized at the end, the old man dies sitting out in his car in a snow blizzard. And it's like, okay, right, well, those two sound effects was because we were in his memories while he was in this car dying. And that's why you can hear the windscreen wipers for a bit, and then they die away, and then it's just the sound of the snow, because that's the car now completely buried.
Did you notice as well that there's parts of it when they're when they're in the second part of the car when they're driving to the school, that the windscreen wipers and the snow sound is only when she's talking and not when he's talking? As well?
That's quite cool.
Yeah.
Only when she was talking, not when he was talking.
I think that for me, the biggest thing that I took away from the whole film, I think, was David Thewlis. Can I say that there? Is the bit when he's playing the dad and he's talking to her about the paintings, where he's saying, like, but how can you know that a painting's happy or sad unless someone is in the painting happy or sad? I thought that was genius. It was very, very good. And then obviously, like, you get, especially when you get to the end, and it was a long kind of lingering shot of him in the car, and obviously the janitor's dead in that car, covered in snow, and it looks gorgeous, it looks stunning, but again, you don't know it's a sad thing that you're watching because you can't see the dead body that's in that car. It just looks
Did you notice as well that he was the car is what they arrived in, but his car was the truck?
Yeah,
quite interesting as well.
Yeah, because I was trying to work out actually when they were going from the car to the truck, and then obviously it was a car at the end. I didn't quite get what they were doing with it, but again, so many things to unpack. I'll be thinking about this film for a good few days, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
So, summary, what do you think IMDb gave it so far?
4, because people don't understand it.
4, Mark?
I'm going to say a high middle of the road, so a 6.
6. It's actually higher than that. IMDb have currently got it sitting at 6.7 out of 10. So it's done relatively well on that. Rotten Tomatoes?
I mean, they'll give it certified dead in a ditch. one tomato.
Yeah, it'll be low, 20%.
Can I surprise you again? 82% currently.
That's critics. Normal people don't watch this film.
Yeah. So obviously the critics are having their field. Well, but there's been a lot of critics that have said it's rubbish as well. I mean, some critics have said it's actually just a big pile of
Nonsense.
Bouldering fire nonsense, self-indulgent nonsense. And then the last one, Google, out of 5. Now, Google's a very common one. That's a lot of...
3.
Is it out of 5 in the fact of it's with a decibel or just
decimal as well? Yeah,
3.7.
Like, that was the lowest. So I think that kind of shows more about the real people who are been watching this rather than critics. That's 2.4 that comes in it.
Yeah,
it's a shame because it's a great movie. It's one of those movies that you'll go back to at least once in your life and unpack so much more. You know, that's like saying Mulholland Drive upon first watching is terrible. Yeah. And I think upon first watching, I didn't enjoy any of Mulholland Drive, but I immediately stuck the DVD back on and watched it the second time.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I wanted to do that with I'm Thinking of Ending Things, but
I'm 100% going to watch it again. 100%, just not right now, because it was just too much for my brain. I've watched Tenet this week, 2 weeks. Watched Tenet twice, and I've watched this once. My brain is fried.
You can always just watch it when Captain Falcon was meant to start on Disney Plus.
That's a good point. It's an absolute disappointment.
Mark, have you seen Synecdoche, New York? Charlie Kaufman film.
No.
If you like this, you'll like that.
Okay, I will watch that. Thank you for that.
Yeah, so I think it's an overwhelming thumbs up from Team Geekified for the film. It's a very enjoyable film. Don't get me wrong. Stupid here, was a bit confused by it when I got to the end and did have to go online and find out a little bit more to understand it, but doesn't mean I didn't enjoy it. I just felt there was a very few cinematic things in it that probably could have dialed down or dialed up a little bit. But overall, I think Team Geekified, it's a massive thumbs up for us. So get yourselves to watch Charlie Kaufman in his directing his latest film on Netflix. So thank you very much for joining us in another episode of Geekified. You'll catch up with us again soon. Please like and subscribe. It's really important to help us continue making content. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you for having us.
See you later.
We can do this all day.